Hey kindergartners, this is Mrs. Dar again. Are you excited to keep working on your animal books? Today in this video, we're going to focus on what our animal eats, where they live, and their life cycle. So we're going to go ahead and switch over to my document camera and my screen. So give me 1 second and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so up here on my screen, you can see our packet again. And remember, you can access this on the Somerset Area School District website. Go to Maple Ridge, go ahead under the kindergarten packet, and you can see the animal links again. You see all the pages for our book. But the one thing that I really wanted to point out to you today is that green star. So that green star, if you click on it in the digital version, it will take you to a link that provides research about frogs, which is what I chose to do my book on. So today we're going to start with what do they eat, and if I click on that star, it takes me to this page where I can see lots of information about what a frog eats. So as I'm reading and looking over it, I learned that frogs are carnivores, which means they eat meat. And they usually, the smaller frogs like insects, spiders, bugs, and worms. However, some bigger frogs will go after some smaller mammals like a mouse, birds, rats, bats, okay? And it's interesting to find out that frogs like their food alive. And as you continue to read, it tells us that they catch their prey with their tongue, but frogs cannot chew. So once they catch their food, they swallow it whole, and they use their eyes to swallow their food as well. So lots of cool information about what a frog eats. Unfortunately, because I don't have a ton of pages on a writing space on my page, I won't be able to write all of that, but I'm going to try and pick my most favorite things that I learned about what a frog eats and write it down on my paper. All right, hang on tight. We're going to switch over to my document camera and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, boys and girls, here we have the page that says what do they eat, where we're going to write all the important information about what your animal eats. So if you want to go ahead and find this page in your packet, and you will want to make sure you do your research prior to starting to write, because we want to make sure what we're writing in our book is factual information and it's true. So make sure you look up that information before you go ahead and get started writing. So I'm ready to get started, and I'm going to write my sentences first, and then I will illustrate my picture. So remember, I really want to see you writing at least one good detailed sentence, but if you're challenging yourself and you want to work a little harder, you can fill up the whole page with information about what your animal eats, or you can just choose to write a certain number of sentences. All right, so I think that I definitely want to put that frogs are carnivores. I think it's important to know that frogs eat meat. And then I'm going to give an example of some of the things that they do eat, like the insects, spiders, bugs, and worms. I thought it was pretty cool that they catch their prey with their tongues and swallow it whole. So I want to see, as long as I have enough room, I'm going to go ahead and add that information in as well. All right, boys and girls, I'm going to get started writing. Don't forget, we always want to start our sentence with an uppercase letter. We want to end a sentence with punctuation. And if you're writing multiple sentences, after you end with punctuation, you start that next sentence with an uppercase. All right, here we go. So I'm going to start with frogs are carnivores. That's a big word. So I can go back on my research page and copy it, or if I want to just sound it out, I could do that as well. Carnivores. Okay, and that's the end of my sentence, so I'm going to put a period, and now I'm ready to write my next sentence. Frogs are carnivores. They, instead of writing the name of your animal all the time, you could use they and kind of interchange between the name of your animal and they if you'd like. They like, don't forget you want to probably use a one finger space just so you have a little bit more room if you're writing multiple sentences. If you're just writing one sentence, you could probably go ahead and use a 2-finger space. Frogs are carnivores. They like to eat insects. I'm going to use a comma. When I'm naming multiple things in a row, instead of using the word and after each one, you can use this, which is called a comma, and make a list of things. So insects, spiders, bugs, and worms. All right, so you can see I'm running out of room. I probably only have enough room to write one more sentence. So I think I'm going to go ahead and write about how they swallow their prey whole because they cannot chew. So I ended with a period. I'm ready to start a new sentence. I'm going to start with an uppercase F for frogs. Swallow their prey whole because they can't. Now I did run out of space. It's okay if I have to go down here a little bit to finish out my sentence. They can't chew. All right. Now, again, you want to make sure you go back over, reread, make sure what you wrote makes sense, fix anything that maybe is a mistake, and then you're ready to go ahead and complete your illustrations. Frogs are carnivores. They like to eat insects, spiders, bugs, and worms. Frogs swallow their prey whole because they can't chew. All right, so as I'm going to go ahead and get started with my illustration, I definitely want to make sure I have a picture of a frog. I should probably show that a frog eats insects, spiders, bugs, and worms, so I might want to draw a picture of all of those things. So maybe down here I want to draw a picture of a worm, okay, a spider, with lots of legs, okay, some other types of bugs, and then maybe over here I want to draw my frog. You can see Mrs. Starr is not always the best drawer. So make sure you're adding in the detail to go along with your sentences that you wrote. Make sure they're nice and zoomed in and up close. You don't want them to be super tiny that nobody can see what exactly it is that you drew. And after you draw with your pencil, go back over with your crayon and add in all of those nice details and color. All right, I'm not going to take the time and finish up my picture. I'll finish those up and show them to you once we're all done with our books. So the next thing that we're going to move on to would be where your animal lives. So I'm going to switch back over to my research screen to take a look at where my animal lives so that I can get ready and complete the next page of my book. So hang tight for a second. We're going to switch over. All right, so here I am with all of my research pages again. So we want to take a look at this page here that shows me where frogs live. Some of this information up here at the top wasn't as helpful as I was hoping, but down here at the bottom it tells me that frogs live all over the world. They can be found in fresh water near ponds, lakes, and marshes. One interesting thing about frogs is they cannot live in the sea because they do not like salt water. So I'm going to kind of focus on that part when completing my where my animal lives. So I'm going to switch back over to my document camera. While I'm doing that, if you want to go ahead and find your where your animal lives page, and we will go ahead and get started on that. Okay, hold on, something's not working, so try that again. There we go. All right, so we have our Where Do They Live page. I'm ready to go ahead and start filling in my page with the information I learned about where a frog lives. So we know that frogs can be found all over the world. So I'm going to start with that. I think that's pretty cool to know that they aren't just in certain areas. So frogs can be, don't forget that spacing, frogs can be found all over the world. And we learned that they can be found near fresh water. Fresh bodies of water, like ponds. Again, I'm making a list, so I want to use that comma, ponds, lakes, or marshes. Now, I am out of room, so I won't have the room to write about the sea, but that's okay. I think I have some really good detail there that my reader's going to enjoy. All right, I want to make sure my sentences make sense, that I started each sentence with an uppercase and end with punctuation. So, frogs can be found all over the world, period, because that's my first sentence. Ready to start a new one, start with an uppercase. They can be found near fresh bodies of water like ponds, lakes, or marshes. That's my second sentence. I end with a period. All right, so great information. Now I'm ready to complete my illustration that goes along with my sentences. So I definitely want to draw frogs. I probably want to draw the different bodies of water. So I might draw a pond, a lake, and a marsh. So a marsh is kind of a wet area. It's not an actual pond or lake where you see a big area that's filled with water. A marsh kind of has more plants and things growing in it, and it's kind of swampy and wet. Again, we still have another page to do, so I don't want to take the time and complete my whole illustration right now. I will go ahead and do mine and then show it to you in the next video when we have our book complete. So again, make sure that picture is nice and zoomed in. Draw your picture with your pencil, then go over top and add nice color and detail. All right, boys and girls, we're ready for our last page of this video, and we're going to take a look at your animal's life cycle. So go ahead and find that page. The life cycle can be a little bit tricky, so I do want to show you my research page just so we have a good idea of what we want to put on that page, and then we'll go ahead and get started with it. So let's switch over to that screen. All right, so here's my web browser. You can see we were researching where the animals live. And now we're ready to go over to the life cycle of a frog. So there's lots of information here. What I really like about this page is I was able to find pictures and in the description of each stage of the frog's life cycle. So We know obviously that it starts with a frog, and a frog lays eggs. And you can see here that frogs lay a lot of eggs. And from those eggs hatch what we call tadpoles. And tadpoles don't exactly look like a frog, right? So, and they live in the water full time. They can't come out of the water. They wouldn't be able to survive. So the tadpole lives in the water, and it begins to turn into a frog. They call it froglets. So the body starts to get smaller, it starts to grow legs, the tail disappears, and eventually, once it has matured completely, it is officially a frog with back legs, and it develops lungs because the frog needs lungs to be able to survive on land, because once it becomes a frog, it doesn't live in the water anymore, it lives on land. However, it does still go near the water or in the water, okay? So I'm ready to go ahead and write all of that information on my page. Like I said, it's nice to have these pictures so that even when I'm creating my illustration to go along with my sentences, I have a nice idea of what I want everything to look like. All right, hang tight. I'm gonna switch back over to the document camera. So while I'm doing that, go ahead and find your life cycle page, and we're gonna finish our last page of this video. All right, here we go. So up at the top, it says life cycle. Don't forget, you want to make sure you research your animal and you know a lot about your animal's life cycle before you're going to be able to fill in this paper and write good detailed sentences that are facts and true information. All right, so I want to start with the very first stage of the life cycle. So I know that a frog has to lay the egg. So I'm going to write that frogs lay eggs, and I think it's important to say that they lay them in the water, okay? Frog, oh, I made a mistake. I wrote frog lay eggs. That doesn't make sense. Frogs, add in an S there. Frogs lay eggs in, don't forget your finger space. Frogs lay eggs in the water. Okay, that's my very first sentence, okay? And that's also the first step of a frog's life cycle. So frogs lay eggs in the water. A tadpole, or tadpoles, we know, tadpoles, because there's usually a bunch of them. Tadpoles hatch from the eggs. Okay, there's my second stage, okay? The third stage, so I have an uppercase T and with a period. Now I need to write my third stage, okay? The tadpole, we learned, turns into a froglet. So we want to say tadpoles turn into froglets. And grow legs and lungs. And the very last step is now it is a frog. So I'll write now it's a frog. Okay, that's pretty exciting to me, so I'm going to use an exclamation point. All right, and then the life cycle starts over, right? Because now that it's a frog, the frog lays the eggs, and the life cycle continues over and over and over, okay? So as I'm drawing my picture up here, a life cycle kind of goes, sometimes when you see those illustrations, you might see it in like a circle motion, you might see it in like a step by step by step. So I'm going to draw boxes and then some arrows to show the order in which the steps happen. Okay, now obviously I don't have enough room, so I am going to put my last one right here. Okay, so in that first one, I would draw a picture of, and maybe you want to put a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, so you know that those are the 4 different steps. So I would draw a picture of the frog and the eggs, the tadpole turning into a froglet, and then the very last thing we see is the full-grown adult frog. All right, boys and girls, awesome work. You did a lot of work today, a lot of research. So make sure you work hard on those illustrations, adding those details. In my next video, which will be our last video, we will finish the fun facts page, and we will go ahead and complete our drawing for our front cover, and then we'll be able to put our book together. So I will see you soon, and we'll go ahead and finish up our books. Keep up the good work, little eagles. See you soon.